This is my life now.
Rob?
Oh, hey Chandler.
The hell are you doing out here?
Can't really go back to my place.
So what the hell's been happening?
For the past 2 years, it's just been me running. I'm sick of it.
Hey man, what the hell happened to you, man? You used to have this drive. You didn't give a damn what people thought. And now what, you're gonna let some mass murderers who could easily kill you in 10 seconds ruin that? I have been here, and you need to fight this. You can do it. Why let these assholes stand in the way of what you want to do? You can achieve anything if you set your mind to it. Look at your social anxiety. Do you think for a single solitary second 6 years ago you would have had the balls to film out in public like we're doing right now? People are walking their dogs watching us. And right now we don't give a fuck. Well, you know what? You've spent 10 years shitting on awful movies.
Yeah, people seem to enjoy that.
The movies are pissed, man. They're coming after you. So how about you make things right by reviewing a good movie?
A lot of them have been good, so that doesn't really make sense.
Shut up! Trust me. Why don't you look at a movie that isn't talked about very often and defend it? Defend a movie, not just review a good one that everyone knows is good. How about you defend a great film?
That's it. I mean, they can't be mad if I'm defending a film. I just need to do that more, right? What do you suggest?
They did a sequel to Psycho.
Wait. They made a sequel to one of the greatest horror movies of all time. That sounds terrible.
What if I told you that this is a sequel decades later that doesn't suck cock?
We all remember Psycho, the classic Alfred Hitchcock tale of serial killer Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins, distraught over the death of his mother, so he portrays her to keep her spirit alive, murdering along the way with split personalities. It practically invented the slasher genre and sent horror into orbit. Nothing ever came of a continuation until 1982, when Robert Bloch published a sequel in novel form, though this went all Wes Craven on us and actually satirized the entire slasher genre at the time. The story actually followed Norman escaping from a mental institution and going to Hollywood to prevent them from making a movie based on his life. Stupid.
Thanks.
Universal didn't want to adapt this, but their own version instead, hiring Richard Franklin to direct, who had previously worked under the eye of the original's orchestrator Alfred Hitchcock himself. Tom Holland was also hired to write the script, but no, he did not grow up to become Spider-Man.
You're not kidding.
Hilton A. Green was assistant director of the original and was asked to produce it, but he was worried that Hitchcock wouldn't have wanted any sequels to be made. It wasn't until Alfred's daughter Patricia read the script and gave her blessing, stating that her father would have loved it, which is when Hilton A. Green accepted the job. It was even supposed to be a TV movie, and Anthony Perkins originally turned down the chance to reprise his role. But once he read the script, he quickly accepted, which is a good thing because Christopher Walken was nearly cast in his place. Nah.
Why bother?
Reviews were actually split after release, some saying it was a worthy continuation paying homage to the legendary Hitchcock, while others felt like it was a disgraceful cash cow of the original. But over the years it's gained quite the cult following. Filmmaker Quentin Tarantino even said that he loves this film so much he actually prefers it to the original. However, not everyone was happy. Meg Tilly, who played Perkins' co-star Mary, was never allowed to watch the original film growing up. So once on set, she didn't understand why Perkins was such a big deal, and he heard about this, grew rather angry, and even refused to talk to her during filming. He even demanded that she be fired at one point. Tilly considers this one of the worst filming experiences of her career, as Perkins was so difficult to work with. She even refused to show up to the premiere. And Jamie Lee Curtis was actually nearly cast instead as a throwback, since her mum was slashed to death in the shower scene in the original. The story follows serial killer Norman Bates 22 years after the original film's events, again played by Anthony Perkins. He's been cured of his insanity and is once again released to civilization, returning to his home, which by the way is the original set from the first film. And it really does look so cool to go back there after so many years have passed. And the music really does set the mood perfectly. However, Lila Loomis, once again played by Vera Miles, is outraged by this and tries to get justice served for his victims. He gets a job at a diner where he meets Mary, played by Tilly, and they form a strong bond. She's just broken up with her boyfriend and he gives her a place to stay before strange occurrences start to begin. By the way, people at the diner are fully aware of Norman's past, and yet she still trusts him enough to go back to his house after working with him for one day. She is so dead.
Are you satisfied, Doctor? Turning a murderer loose on an innocent public?
Mrs. Loomis, Norman was not convicted of murder. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yep, actually incredibly realistic. But why the hell would you bring back a psychotic serial killer to the very location where he snapped and murdered all those people? I mean, his shrink does offer to find him another place and Norman refuses, but still, this shouldn't be allowed. So throughout the film, Norman is constantly toyed with. He finds notes from his mother, which is really creepy, and it leads to him hallucinating and freaking out. It's almost like returning to the scene of the crime after 22 years of confinement was a bad idea. They have a lot of great throwbacks too. There's a scene where Mary goes to take a shower and Norman notices as the tap water changes. The suspense is incredible. There's a peephole someone is watching, and they even let the scene linger at the end after she gets out, so you expect him to lunge in at some point for a cheap jump scare, but it doesn't happen. It's the perfect fake out. What the hell's with this ugly ass wallpaper though?
Talk about the customers being nasty.
Norman begins to receive phone calls from someone pretending to be his mother, and it was fairly obvious from the start, at least to me, I called it, that it was going to be Mary doing it. Either way, you actually feel really sorry for Norman as you believe he's not going crazy and someone is just messing with him. He's painting the motel ready to reopen it at one point and spots his mother inside. He gets notes threatening to kill Mary, and it's so well written you're trying to figure out if it's really his mother somehow, or if it's Norman losing it and portraying her again as another split personality, or if someone else entirely is responsible. But two random ass kids sneak into his cellar to smoke pot because they're in a horror movie and they only exist to die. But to their credit, only the guy dies as the girl makes it out and informs the police. But Norman was somehow locked in the attic at the time, despite there being no lock, with Mary believing this proves his innocence of the murder.
There's a girl sitting down in my squad car below, too scared to come into this house.
Why?
Well, she claims that she saw her boyfriend murdered in your fruit cellar today by a large woman dressed in black. That's just how your mother used to look, isn't it, Norman?
Well, what were they doing in the cellar anyway?
Way to prove your innocence, mate. You're being accused of murder and that's your reaction?
You been straightening up down here?
No, sir. This is the first time I've been inside this room since I came home.
And who did it?
I did. Several days ago.
Told ya, she's the killer. She even makes up a fake alibi to protect Norman from arrest. She is the biggest murderer on the planet! They have great tension builders when Mary finds someone spying on her, but Norman is actually downstairs and... Oh, Jesus Christ! And then they're gone. This legitimately has you on the edge of your seat as you're trying to figure out who the killer is or how any of this is happening. There's so many twists and turns, it just keeps you guessing. But they lock themselves in a room and decide to wait until morning to investigate. Oh, it's just a killer in the house, no big deal. Also, turn a light on. Why are you constantly sitting in darkness? But the shrink insists that Lila and Mary were the ones making the phone calls. Called it!
Yes, of course.
But Norman doesn't buy it, still believing that his mother is alive. But the third act is insane. You are on the edge of your seat waiting to see what happens next. The shrink follows Lila into the house at the end to investigate when Norman shows up, and it's such a creepy atmosphere. You are wondering if Norman really is insane or innocent, and you're just waiting for chaos to ensue. When he and Mary finally have the showdown, it's so intense and surreal. She's wielding a knife, but he doesn't seem to feel pain and just goes full psycho mode. But the heartbreaking thing is, she goes to kill him and the cops show up and shoot her down. There is an extended cut to show that she survives, but in the theatrical release, it's left ambiguous. And of course, it wouldn't be a psycho movie without a long, unnecessary exposition scene at the end to explain everything we've already seen. And yeah, Norman is let home again. Then another scene with his real mum at the end. This has more endings than... something that has a lot of endings. Norman is a lot more real and sympathetic in this one. He constantly looks out for Mary and tries to protect her when she's alone at night, and he does try to look after her with the best of intentions. It feels weird to root for a psychopath, but he's so charming and likable at the start. You want him to be innocent. But there's so many subtle touches throughout. Mary rings her ex-boyfriend to try to make amends, and Norman stands behind her. Nothing is said, but you're trying to figure out what he's thinking. Is he completely cured? Or is he fighting some inner demons and holding back from killing her right now? But she finds out that he has a new girlfriend and Norman consoles her. You grow to like him and care for him, so it's a very interesting approach to the slasher genre. He even discovers his old knife and begins to fight his demons once again. She gives him the knife to cut a sandwich and he has to fight the urge. The tension and suspense is built perfectly. Although she reveals she knows about his past and asks to leave. So why the hell did you go there in the first place, love?
I guess I'm just nervous.
She does spend a night away and you feel really sorry for Norman as he's clearly lonely and lost, but she soon returns and their bond continues. He even plays the piano, see? He's a sensitive soul! But he slowly slips back into insanity as the film progresses, but it never feels forced, it always feels natural and seamless. This arsehole was the manager at the motel but has turned it into a partying joint with drugs. Now, Norman will murder people and spine them in the shower, but he is not okay with drugs. But this guy is so unlikably likable. He is such a good douchebag. You really want to see him die. Ah, there it is.
Is that better?
He's so over the top, you can just smell his death coming right away. Norman fires him and then gets antagonized, but remains calm throughout. See, he really has changed. He's not a bad guy after all.
Absolutely.
Because the next day, Norman is cutting some lettuce when the douchebag shows up, thinks Mary and Norman did the naughty, and starts hitting on her. He's holding back as he violently cuts those vegetables. And then there's a note from his mother threatening Mary. This is terrifying, man. He does eventually snap at him, who then encourages him to grab a nearby knife and attack him, but Norman refuses to do it. This tension is amazing. Honestly, this is one of the best written characters I have ever seen, and I have no idea why more people don't talk about Psycho 2. It's an expertly written masterpiece. Oh, but then the note isn't there anymore. Whoa! But they grow closer as Mary loves how he handled himself and is proud that he didn't snap.
Well, I thought you were wonderful today.
Why?
The way you handled that Toomey guy, what an asshole. I could have killed him and you were so cool.
No, I don't kill people anymore, remember?
I murdered people. So charming.
Well, thank you.
So we find out that Mary is actually Lila Loomis's daughter.
Do you remember Lila Loomis?
Yes.
How? Lila married Sam Loomis and therefore took his last name after you were captured. But you believe that Norman has been rehabilitated and you want him to be innocent. They even dig up his mother's grave to prove to him that she's dead, but he starts to lose it, thinking anyone on the phone is his mother. But Mary is such a likable character. For the most part. Let's just go down the basics first.
All right.
So her mum tries to insist that Norman is crazy and is going to kill her, but Mary pleads that he just isn't responsible for the murders. Norman even blames himself, saying that he used to black out, so he may have done it and can't remember it. But Mary defends him and is adamant that he didn't. She sticks by him no matter what and is such a strong-willed and likable character. Except here when she's sleeping, wakes up and Norman is clearly about to attack her, but she doesn't even panic and just thinks that he's protecting himself from the killer. Get a clue! There is a really emotional scene where Mary just holds him as he reminisces about his mother and the issues he's been through. This scene was actually specifically put in as a request by Perkins himself. The character is so crazy yet so sympathetic and troubled at the same time. He may actually be the most fleshed out killer in slasher history. But Mary confronts her mum and tells her to leave Norman alone. She admits to making the calls but not the blood in the bathroom or spying through the peepholes, and basically it's revealed that Lila and Mary conspired to send Norman insane again so he would be locked back up in the institution. So they both sent the notes, made the phone calls, dressed like mother to try to get him to flip. But this leaves a problem. So as the film progresses, Norman claims that Mrs. Bates wasn't his biological mother, he was actually adopted. The cops refuse to believe this as there's no record of it. That's impossible.
Stop lying to me, please!
But his biological mother shows up at the end to have dinner with Norman.
Mother, are you there? I love you. I never meant to hit you over the head with that shovel.
He is so grounded.
You're sicker than I ever was.
Now, anytime Norman wasn't around, or Lila denies responsibility, or Mary wasn't involved, we're to assume that it was his biological mother. However, what about the boy who was murdered? They imply that Mary was involved, but she cleaned up the cellar not long after. Why would they put that in there unless they're trying to imply that she actually committed the murder? So they murdered to show that murder was wrong. What?
Of course not.
I mean, yeah, I'm guessing it was his real mum who did that killing, but I don't understand why they imply Mary was involved not long after. Regardless, Mary even uses the phone to pretend to be his mother to snap him out of trances. She's a really intelligent and well thought out character.
Have we broken some law?
None that are on the books, but a whole hell of a lot of them that aren't. Like all the ones having to do with right or wrong. I'd say you and your mother just about broken every one of those, wouldn't you?
I didn't mean to.
I just wanted to send a serial killer insane again. I didn't think anything bad would happen. The thing is, you don't really buy into the real mother thing, so you're positive it's Lila, but then she goes and gets murdered. Way to throw us a curveball. But Mary even remains calm at the end and gets dressed up as his mother to calm Norman and convince him that there is no other mother. Oh hey, Friday the 13th ripped this off. We'll get to that. And there's a really subtle moment where she tries to reach him over the phone, but he walks off and she begins to cry, finally realizing that she's lost him. She spent the entire film trying to hold on to his sanity. They're never romantically involved, but they care about one another, and the trip through his psyche is incredibly well written. Oh, then the shrink shows up and she accidentally kills him. Oh well. John Williams actually nearly composed the score for this film before the job went to Jerry Goldsmith. But the movie starts off immediately building the tension really well. The opening titles are incredibly calm yet creepy. They build an uneasy tone, and it's immediately following a recap of the original. It's a very strong opening. The music is one of the strongest parts of the film. The tone is charming when it needs to be, yet creepy and eerie in other parts. It's a great composition. However, some shots are randomly on a damn tilt. I mean, here, Norman goes to investigate the house when he thinks he sees his mother, so I guess it's to make you feel uneasy. But it's also earlier in the film when Mary is yelling at the douchebag. That's a completely different kind of sequence, so I'm unsure why it's even there. And right here, towards the end, Mary feels threatened and the camera does a random-ass pan to the ceiling. The hell was that for? Just looked like the cameraman was drunk.
Nice to see you again, Norman.
Why did you do that?
Why did you act? Okay, Perkins is actually really good in this film, just that one line. That's all I got. Who are we kidding? Bates starts to switch back and forth between his split personalities, and the acting is incredible. Perkins is amazing, and I think he even topped his previous performance, honestly. Meg Tilly is adorable, but also delivers a strong performance to match her strong character. Honestly, all acting in the movie is tremendous. This is probably one of the best sequels in history. Not just horror history, but movie history. It explores the mind of a serial killer incredibly well, the acting all around is terrific, and yeah, I actually do kind of prefer this to the original. I think it's smarter, it has clever throwbacks, not just for the sake of it, and it's just an amazing, scary story. You know what? Chandler was right, I actually do feel a lot better.